Hello. I thought since I was doing this anyway, the answers for this sheet, I might as well film myself doing it and just talk out loud or think out loud as I was doing it, and maybe that'll help some of you. I'm going to just go at the pace I would usually go doing solutions though, so it's not going to be beautiful. And it might be a bit fast, but at least you can pause and rewind and stuff. Also, I'll try and keep the question on the screen as I'm doing it, but I might get confused and it might go out the screen, so don't judge me too harshly. Find the equation of the line. That means I need point, I need gradient, and I need equation, first of all. So I've only read the first couple of lines, the first couple of words of the question, but I know that I need that, which is parallel to that. So that's how I'm going to find the gradient, and which passes through that, right? So it's just giving me the point for 3, 3, negative 4. And to find the gradient, well, it's parallel to that, so it's got the same gradient as this line. So 2x minus 3y equals 7. So if I want to find the gradient of this line, I've got a negative y term. I don't like that. So I'm going to take the negative y term over to this side, and the 7 will come over here and subtract. It's quite hard to write on top of this. So let's leave y by itself, as we always would, and divide the 3 down underneath both of those numbers. So 2/3 x subtract 7 over 3. I'm hating this. The gradient is going to work out as 2/3. Okay, so all I've done is rearranged and found a gradient of 2/3. Now, it's parallel, it's got the same gradient, I have to do nothing else. That's a Nat 5 question. I've not done any higher stuff at all. So let's just do the equation. Y minus b, which is negative 4, is y add 4 then, equals 2/3, brackets, x take away 3. Multiply the 3 up, that will give me 3y add 12, equals 2 multiplies through that bracket, 2x minus 6. My final answer will be 3y minus 2x equals negative 6, take away 12, which is negative 18. Okay. Move, please, thank you. Okay. So that's question 1 done. Right, I'm going to see if I can move this up the top because it's too difficult to write over the top of it. Put my calculator under there, it's a bit of support. Right, I'm hoping you can still see question number 2. Okay, question number 2. Find the equation of the line which is perpendicular to that and which passes through that. Okay, so it's almost the same question. Point, gradient, equation. I've not used my ruler. That was very poor. It's perpendicular to this, it passes through, right? So again, I've just been given the point, minus 3, 6. It's perpendicular to this. So I'm going to find the gradient of that line. And then I'm going to flip it. So this will become 2y equals 7x minus 3. Y equals 7 over 2, x minus 3 over 2. My gradient starts off as 7 over 2 then. Therefore, my perpendicular gradient is negative 2/7. Okay, so there's my point, there's my gradient. Let's do y minus b. Y minus 6 is negative 2/7, brackets x add 3. That's, the 7 is going to multiply up, so 7y minus 42 is minus 2x minus 6. So 7y add 2x equals negative 6 add 42, which is 36. Right, question number 3. Okay. That and that are the vertices of a triangle. Find the equation of PS, the altitude from P. I don't care that it's called PS, I don't care what S is. It wants the altitude from P. So again, it's asking for an equation. So I do PGE. The altitude from P. What do I know about an altitude? An altitude is perpendicular to the opposite side. The opposite side from P is QR. Right, so I'm going to find the gradient of QR perpendicular to the opposite side. So it's perpendicular to this. So 1 minus minus 2 is 1 add 2. 4 minus minus 2 is 4 add 2. That's 3 over 6, which is a half. So my perpendicular gradient to that will be negative 2. The point, well, it's the altitude from P, I can just use point P, minus 4, 5. So the equation is then y minus 5 equals minus 2 x add 4. That's y minus 5 equals minus 2x minus 8. That's y add 2x equals minus 8 add 5 minus 3. That is the altitude from P, or altitude PS if you want. Okay, question number 4. A straight line has the equation this, find the angle this line makes, blah blah blah, positive direction of the x-axis. Those words there tell me it's m equals tan theta. M equals tan theta is what we're looking for. Okay, I want the angle, so that means I want theta. So I'm going to have to find the gradient, and I will do that using the equation that I've been given. 6y minus 3 root 3 x add 15 equals 0. Okay, so get the y term by itself. Try not to be put off by this 3 root 3, it's just a number. So that becomes positive 3 root 3x minus 15. 6 will divide down under both, so 3 root 3 over 6, x minus 15 over 6. So y will be equal to, now 3 over 6, that'll cancel down. That'll be 1 and that'll be 2. So I've got 1 root 3 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Don't forget your x. They both divide by 3 to give me 5 over 2. It's only really the gradient I'm interested in. The gradient is root 3 over 2 of that line. So I know that that line has got a gradient of root 3 over 2. If I want the angle, I put the gradient into this formula. So root 3 over 2 is equal to tan theta. So to get theta by itself, I'm going to do the inverse tan of root 3 over 2. And the inverse tan of root 3 over 2 is about 40. I'm trying to so you can see it. The inverse tan of root 3 over 2 is 40.89. Okay, so it's really 41, but 40.89 degrees. Okay. Let me flip over and we'll do question 5. Just rip that sheet. Being overzealous with my tearing. Right. Question number 5. I'll try and do this so that that's up the top. There it is. Okay. Question number 5 is find the equation of the perpendicular bisector. Right. Find the equation. It's point gradient equation, isn't it? Perpendicular bisector. I love perpendicular bisectors because it's just do the midpoint, do the perpendicular gradient, do the equation. Right, so you just do everything you know how to do, and you've only got 2 points to use, you can't go wrong. So we're going to do the midpoint and we're going to do the perpendicular gradient. So we do both things if it's a perpendicular bisector. So we'll do the midpoint of those two. 2 add 8 is 10, half it's 5. Negative 1 add 3 is 2, half it's 1. And we do the perpendicular gradient. So start off with the gradient. 3 minus minus 1. 8 minus 2. So I will get 4 over 6, which is 2/3. So therefore, my perpendicular gradient will be negative 3/2. And then I do y minus b. So y minus 1 equals minus 3/2 brackets x take away 5. Multiply the 2 up. So 2y minus 2 is minus 3x add 15. 2y add 3x equals 17. Okay. I had a wee wobble there and I thought I'd done something wrong, but I don't think I actually have. Okay, question number 6. Question number 6. We've got a couple of parts to this question, so let's write 6a. Triangle ABC is versus blah blah blah. Find the equation of the median from C. Find the equation. Point, gradient, equation. The median from C. The median goes to the midpoint of the opposite side. The opposite side from C is AB, so I want the midpoint of that opposite side. I want the midpoint between these two. So the midpoint between these two. 2 add 4 is 6, half it's 3. 7 add negative 9 is negative 2, half it's negative 1. And then I want to do the gradient between that midpoint and point C. So this comes up, 3 negative 1. And point C is negative 6, 3. So my gradient will be 3 minus minus 1, and minus 6 minus 3. That gives me 4 over negative 9, or negative 4/9. Do my equation. Y minus minus 1 is negative 4/9 x minus 3. The 9 only will multiply up, so I'll get 9y add 9 is minus 4x add 12. So I'll get 9y add 4x equals 12 minus 9, which is 3. Okay, part B. Find the equation of the perpendicular bisector of BC. I should probably move this down a wee bit just in case. Perpendicular bisector of BC. Point gradient equation. Right, so we've just done a perpendicular bisector a wee minute ago. So you should remember, you use the midpoint and the perpendicular gradient, and it's BC, so I'm using these 2 points. So 4, negative 9 and negative 6, 3. 4, negative 9 and negative 6, 3. The midpoint is 4 add negative 6, halved is negative 1. Negative 1 add 3 is negative 6, half is negative 3. And the gradient will be 3 minus minus 9. I shouldn't just skip to 12. So that's 3 plus 9. Minus 6 take away 4. So I get 12 over negative 10. So that's negative 6/5. My perpendicular gradient is therefore 5/6. So I've got a point, I've got my gradient, I'll do my equation. Y minus minus 3 is 5/6. X minus minus 1. Multiply the 6 up, multiply it all out, you will get 6y minus 5x, that's going to be 18. 5 take away 18 is negative 13. Okay, that's 6b done. Let's have a look at question number 7. Question number 7 is a wee bit juicier. Although I should say about question number 7, I'll need to remember to type this in a comment somewhere. I should say about number 7, the diagram is atrocious. I drew it and then I never checked it. And I'm an idiot. Because that point J should actually be over there somewhere. But anyway, we'll go through it and we'll just bear that in mind. In the diagram, blah, blah, blah. Median CE. Right, so it tells me C to E is a median. That is the median from C. It goes to the midpoint of the opposite side. Just checking you can see all that on the camera. Yes, you can. And altitude BD. So the altitude BD goes from B and it's perpendicular to the opposite side. Okay, so it's the median from C and the altitude from B. And they intersect at J. Find the equations of CE and BD. Right, so CE, this is all in part A, by the way. CE is really just the median from C. Okay, so we'll do point gradient and equation, as expected. Am I going to go out the bottom? No. Point gradient and equation. The median goes to the midpoint of the opposite side. So I'm going to do the midpoint between A and B. So the midpoint between A and B will be 7 add negative 3, 4 halved is 2, 0 add negative 2, halved is negative 1. So 2, negative 1. I'll then take that midpoint up and use it along with point C. And point C is negative 1, 8. So my gradient will be 8 minus minus 1, which is 9. Negative 1 take away 2 is negative 3. My gradient will be 9 divided by negative 3, which is negative 3. So then my equation for my median, CE, will be y minus minus 1 is minus 3 times x minus 2, which will be y add 3x equals, that's going to be 6, take away 1 is 5. Y add 3x equals 5 is the equation of CE. Right, still on part A. I've got another bit to do, because part A also wants me to find the equation of BD. Can't see that yet, can you? Right, so it also wants me to find the equation of BD. BD is the altitude from B. Right, the altitude from B. So I need to do point gradient equation. So the altitude is perpendicular to the opposite side. The opposite side from B is AC. So I'm going to use A and C to do my gradient. 8 minus 0 over negative 1 take away 8. That will give me, oh sorry, negative 1 take away 7. That will give me 8 over negative 8, which is negative 1. Therefore, my perpendicular gradient will be 1. Altitude from B, I can just use point B up here, negative 3, negative 2. So there's my gradient, there's my point. Y minus minus 2 is 1, x minus minus 3. This will give me a final equation of y minus x equals 3 minus 2 is 1. Okay, so part A was find CE and BD. We've done both of them. There's CE, there's BD. Right, for part B, the question is saying find the coordinates of J. Well, the coordinates of J, we were told, were the points of intersection between CE and BD. So it's that point there. So it's the point of intersection between this line here and this line here. So it's simultaneous equations. So for part B, I'm just going to write those two lines above one another. Y minus x equals 1. And we will perform simultaneous equations, which we should be quite comfortable with from National 5. What do we want to do? Times the bottom one by 3, times the bottom one by a negative. It's probably easiest. I'm just going to times this through by a negative, and I'm just going to do it right now. That becomes negative, that becomes positive, that becomes negative. So adding these together down the way, y add negative y, gone. 3x add x is 4x. 5 add negative 1 is 4. So x is going to be 4 divided by 4, x is 1. That's the first half of your solution, first half of your coordinate. I'm going to double underline that, even though it's not a final answer. Right, so then I'm going to take x as 1, and I'm going to sub it into the first equation. So y add 3 times 1 equals 5. That means y add 3 equals 5. That means y equals 2. That's the other half of my point. But I have to remember they asked for the coordinates of J. So I write it as a coordinate point 1, 2. And that confirms that I am an idiot and that my diagram is absolutely stinking. That point is 1, 2. It looks like negative 1, 2, but it's 1, 2. Okay, part C is hence find the length of segment EJ. From E to J is that distance there. Right, we know point J is 1, 2, we've just found that. What's point E? Well, point E is the midpoint of the opposite side, because C goes, that's a median, so that's the midpoint of the opposite side. And we had to find that earlier on. When we did the median from C, the first thing we did was we found the midpoint of the opposite side. So 2, negative 1 is actually E. So E is the point 2, negative 1. J is the point 1, 2. It's annoying me that I'm switching from J to J. I can never decide which one it is. Anyway, I want the distance from E to J, E to J, E to J. So I'm going to make a right angle triangle and just do Pythagoras. By the way, I'm not even remotely thinking about doing this triangle to scale. I am just drawing an arbitrary right angle triangle. I don't really care if it looks to scale or not, as long as it's got a right angle on there and I put the right things in the right places. The distance from 2 to 1, it's not 2, distance from 2 to 1 is a distance of 1. Excuse me. From negative 1 up to 2 is a distance of 3. So my x distance is 1, my y distance is 3. So the distance between those 2 points, which is what I'm simulating there, squared will be 3 squared add 1 squared. That's 10. So d will be root 10. I am going to finish that by saying, in the words they asked, the length of EJ is root 10. Maybe I should have said equals root 10, but I've said is now, so I've committed. Right, question number 8. Part A. A triangle has vertices, blah blah blah. Find the equation of the median through B. Find the equation. So I'm doing point, gradient, and equation. So the median through B. the median goes to the midpoint of the opposite side. The midpoint of the opposite side from B is AC. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the midpoint between A and C. So my midpoint is -4 add 0, halved. Sorry, no. Yes, it is. It's -2. And what's that, a 10? 10 add -10 is 0, halved is 0. Okay, so my midpoint is -2 is 0. I'm going to take this up here and use it alongside point B, which is 10, 3. So my gradient is going to be 3 subtract 0 over 10 add 2. So my gradient will be 3 over 12, which is a quarter. Just checking that feels a bit ropey. No, that's right. Okay, so then y minus 0 is a quarter. X add 2, multiply the 4 up. I'll get 4y minus x. 4 times 0 is nothing, so it equals 2. Okay, that's part A. Part B is find the equation of the altitude through C. Can I fit it in here? I'm feeling bold, I'm going to do it. Let's find the equation. Point, gradient equation. Flipping a gradient, it's going to be actually tight to fit it in here. Altitude through C. Okay, well, if it's altitude through C, I just use C. Excuse me. The altitude is perpendicular to the opposite side. So I'll find the gradient between A and B. So it's -4, 10 and 10, 3. I'll find the gradient between those two and then I'll flip it. I'm going to skip a bit of work in here. 3 subtract 10 is -7. 10 subtract -4 is 14, so it's -1/2. Meaning my perpendicular gradient will be 2. Flip that upside down, you get 2, and make it negative, you get positive. Right, so y add 10 equals 2, brackets x take away 0. My equation will be y minus 2x equals, that becomes 0, equals -10. Okay. That's part A, that's part B. Part C is find the point of intersection between the two lines, which is simultaneous equations with these two. So let's go over the page and do that. Simultaneous, the equations. 4y minus x equals 2 and y minus 2x equals -10. 4y minus x equals 2, is what I said? Yeah, and y minus 2x equals -10. This is part C. Let's find the point of intersection between the two lines. Okay, so simultaneous equations. What am I going to do this time? I am going to times this one by -4. So leave my top one the same. 4y minus x equals 2. Bottom one will become -4y. Add 8x equals 40. And then I'll add those together. And adding down the way that's gone, that becomes 7x, and that becomes 42. So I get x is 6. My first bit, I'm going to take x is 6, and I'll sub it back into a top equation. So 4y minus 6 equals 2. That means 4y equals 8. That means y equals 2. So the point of intersection between those two lines is 6, 2. It didn't give us a name for those, so I'm going to write POI for point of intersection is 6, 2. And that makes you look snazzy. Okay, please find questions 9 and 10 on the next page. Question number 9. The line with equation that is perpendicular to that, find the exact value of P. Okay. So the line with equation 2y, by the way, we're not finding an equation here, so it's not point gradient equation. So it says perpendicular. This tells me it's about gradient. So I've got two lines, and your temptation should be to write the two of them down. And I'm actually going to rearrange them both to find the gradient of each. So this one becomes 2y equals 7x minus 1. So y equals 7 halves x minus a half. So the gradient of this line is 7 halves. This line, well, that's negative. I don't like the negative term. So I'll leave the px there. I'll take the negative over here and make it positive. And this can come over and become minus 12. So y will be p over 5 x minus 12 over 5. So the gradient of that line is p over 5. Okay, those two lines are perpendicular. That means that if I flip this gradient, it must give me the same answer as whatever p divided by 5 gives me. So the perpendicular gradient here would be negative 2/7. That tells me that these things must be the same if they're perpendicular. So therefore, p over 5 must be equal to negative 2/7. And from there, if I've got stuff on the bottom, sorry, my phone battery ran out there. So I went on a wee bit. We were here. P over 5 equals negative 2/7. So I've times the 7 up by the p and the 5 up by the minus 2. So 7p is equal to negative 10. And then to get p by itself, we just divide them by 7. And then I had a whole big chat about, does that mean I should then find a decimal value? Should I do 10 divided by 7? Well, no, because it's the exact value it wants. It doesn't want an approximation. So p is negative 10/7. Okay, we're actually at the last question, which is this. Triangle XYZ has x as this and z as this. So find the equation of L1, which is this dotted line, the perpendicular bisector of xz. Right, easy marks. Point, gradient, equation. We're going to do a perpendicular bisector and we should be able to tear through this because we've already done a couple of them. Right, perpendicular bisector. So we're going to use xz both times. X is negative 5, 1. Z is 3, 3. Negative 5, 1. 3, 3. So my midpoint will be negative 5 add 3 is negative 2. Half it is negative 1. 1 add 3 is 4, half it is 2. So it's negative 1, 2 as the midpoint. The gradient is going to be 3 minus 1 on top and 3 minus minus 5, so 3 add 5 on the bottom. So that will become 2 over 8, which is a quarter. My perpendicular gradient will therefore be 4 over 1, which is 4, but minus 4. Okay, so I've got my point, I've got my gradient, let's do the equation. Y minus 2 is minus 4 brackets x add 1. So y minus 2 is minus 4x minus 4. So y add 4x is equal to minus 4 add 2, which is minus 2. Right, so that's my equation of my perpendicular bisector. And to be clear about what we did there, just so we know, is we found the midpoint of x and z. So we've actually found that point there, and then we found the gradient of xz and we flipped it to get this gradient. So that was a quarter and that gradient's negative 4. And then we found the equation. So the equation of that line is y add 4x equals negative 2. Okay, the median from y has gradient negative 7/6. Find the value of k. So there's y there, which is the 0.5k. Right, this is a good question. I like this. Even though I made it myself, I'm still allowed to be proud. Okay, so the median from y has gradient negative 7/6. Well, the median from y goes to the midpoint of the opposite side. We already worked out what that was. We already worked out the midpoint of the opposite side was negative 1, 2. So that point's negative 1, 2. So I know the line that joins 5k to negative 1, 2 has got a gradient of negative 7/6. That's all the information you need to know. So for 10b, I know that from 5k to the point, what did I say it was, negative 1, 2, So from 5k to negative 1, there's a gradient of negative 7/6. Okay, well, I'm going to block that light out because that might hurt my video. Let's just work out the gradient between these 2 points. 2 take away k over negative 1 take away 5. Right, I can't do 2 take away k. Negative 1 take away 5 is negative 6. Right, I can't go any further with this because I don't know what k is. But I know that whatever k is, it must work out to give me an answer of this. So I know that 2 minus k over negative 6 must give me an answer of negative 7/6. Right, so the more astute of you will already know what k is, just from looking at that. However, I'm going to follow it through algebraically. So we'll do the same thing we did in the last question. 6 will multiply up by this, and minus 6 will multiply up by this. So 6 times 2 minus k, that's that 6 coming up to times this, and minus 6 will come up here and times that minus 7. So 12 minus 6k is 42. Minus 6k is 42 subtract 12, which is 30. So k is 30, divided by minus 6. So k is equal to minus 5. And that should make sense to you, because if k was minus 5, this would be 2 minus minus 5, 2 minus minus 5, 2 add 5, which would be 7 over minus 6, which is the same as that. So k is negative 5. And we are done.